Do you want to know what the best in the fitness business do to keep member retention high? Well, this week we've got an interview with Sumit Seth, the co-founder of Naamly, who spent thousands of hours with some of the smartest gym owners on the planet to share his insights. Welcome to Naamly University Online. I'm Elias Scar. All right, Sumit, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. I felt like as someone who is so connected to the fitness industry, once called the most connected man in fitness, and you've been to so many different masterminds and been around so many different professionals, that I thought when on the topic of retention, you'd really sort of have of seeing the forest through the trees overview of what is working in retention right now, what needs to be done in retention, and really what tools can help gym owners really improve their retention and hold on to the people, because it takes so much work to get somebody that we often don't put enough effort into keeping those people. So starting out, I know personally, one of my favorite techniques for retention is personalized communication. I would love to find out what you think about personalized communication when you're dealing with 300 members, 150 members, 500 members. How do we initiate personalized communication with that many people?
That's a great one. So for the industry that we really serve, it's actually no more than 150 clients for the most part, right? The 300 clients is an outlier, and you might have a few training gyms doing that, or the ones that are really doing large group training and stuff. But for the personalized small group training niche that we focus on, it's really about 150 clients tops. Now, if you think about it, that 150 clients coming in, you also have a team of coaches that are interacting with them on an ongoing basis. So I think the personalized communication happens when you want to make that effort to understand what's happening in the lives of your clients, what's personally going on. And the best people to get access to that is people on the ground, people who are interacting day in and day out. And since the coaches can be on a rotation basis, the other big piece that gets missed out in personalized communication is the dissemination of information between one coach to another coach to the whole team, so that we're all on the same page. So it doesn't matter if Elias is connecting with me, or Sumit's connecting with me, or Mike is connecting with me. It just seems that it's seamless because everybody seems to know about me, the client, and that makes a huge difference, right? And on that topic of personalization, it really comes down to, there's so many acronyms that you can keep in mind when you understand what's happening in the lives of the person that you're talking about, right? You have the concept of FORD, you have the concept of form, family, occupation, what do they like to do for recreation, if you will, right? That's on the acronym side of things. And so if you keep those things in mind, and every time you're connecting with the person and you're interacting with them, if you make a little bit of point, like this is what's happening, and you make a note of that, and then you can leverage that information back to, okay, this is how we're going to connect with you. This is what we're going to talk to you, because we meet them where they are. And then we speak to that goal that you're talking to. You just feel connected. You're like, you guys give a damn. You do care about me. And that's what it's all about, right? That's what personalized communication really comes down to in my mind.
Yeah.
Just knowing the person really, really well.
I like your point there, where if I were to break that down into steps, number one is taking an active interest in, you talked about form. So you've got family, occupation, recreation, and what would M be?
Oh yeah. M was, okay, I am drawing a blank on M.
But the idea is that we have a systematic approaches, and I'm looking for these specific aspects rather than just kind of waiting to see what's important to them. I'm taking a proactive effort into that. And then, so taking a proactive effort and then delegating that to the team, making sure that you're not trying to connect with all these people on your own, but really utilizing your team to connect with people, and then having a singular place to store that information where everybody can be on the same page, so service feels seamless.
Yep.
So
Well,
if we're talking about that sort of that one singular place, It's really a matter of storing data. How are we keeping and managing that data? And when I think about data, when it comes to retention, most people only look at two numbers. They look at how many people are still here and how many people have quit. What does that churn look like, right? But I feel like there's more we can look at that that will be preemptive, right? So when we have a bunch of people leave, then we tend to react to the problem as opposed to preemptive behavior that keeps the problem from happening in the first place. So what are some of the numbers you think we could look at in really being a systems specialist? What are some of the numbers you think we could look at beforehand in order to keep retention high rather than reacting to a drop in retention?
That's a great thing. So I think, the churn rate and acquisition, these are all still lagging indicators, right?
Hmm.
You're capturing what has happened after the fact, and you can do a reflective exercise like, why did we lose them? What's really
Hmm.
happened? But when it comes down to leading indicators, especially in this business, it's all really coming down to is usage. So the bigger and higher the usage, the more the person is going to come in. Even if we were lousy trainers, it doesn't really matter if you think about it. We're not lousy trainers, we're experts, we're master technicians. But even if we were bad, the act of consistently showing up by the person, using the program and doing something will make you feel better, will make you get the results, and make you feel like $1,000 or $1,000,000
So
as the saying
monitoring
goes.
attendance as a precursor to a potential problem or success. Like if you have high
Yes.
attendance, then retention should be good. If we have low attendance, that could be a coming marker of retention, a growing retention problem.
Yes. So it's all about usage. Usage really comes down to attendance, but that's the part about them showing up. The other miss piece is the communication part. Like you
Hmm.
spoke to about personalized communication. So over there, what it really comes down to is, are they engaged with you? So showing up is one part of it, but the other part, like which makes them to come again and again and again, is engagement. Do they feel safe? Do they feel connected? Do they believe that you have their best interest in mind? Are you giving them the program, the workouts that appeals to them, that like what they believe they need? That sometimes it's like you want to sprinkle in and pepper in aspects that the client wants and believes that they need, even though they may not need it, but it's like, yeah, that guy, that trainer knows what I like, and I get to do some of that, is a good motivator for coming in, which is the M, motivation. What's your motivation? Going on the tangential of the form, like what's
Well,
your
I think
motivation to come in?
we used to feel like that coming into the gym and engaging while peak clients were in the gym, having a great session, having a great workout was enough. But I would argue that post-pandemic, that's just not enough anymore. People are hungry for connection. So connection outside the gym, whether we're reaching out via text or reaching out via email or sending cards or calling them up and saying, hey, I was thinking about you today, or I have this planned, or you're on my mind, or I've got something excited for when you come in next to the gym. Because we really look at, no matter how hard we try, motivation is a leaky bucket. It just is a leaky bucket. And
Yep.
so we have to constantly fill that bucket with some engagement. I know Naamly, for example, despite I can't think of another software that does this, but I know Naamly, for example, has something called an untouched report. Can you tell me about the untouched report and how that helps with retention?
Well, 100%. So I'll definitely get that. And you're spot on. So most softwares out there really focus on lead acquisition, sales, which is the first part, right? Two sides of the same coin. You need to acquire clients 100%, but you also need to serve the ones that you signed up on, the ones who believed in your product, and get them to stay longer and pay longer, essentially. And that's where the real money is made. And that's where the real impact also happens. So what we've done is, we have consciously focused on that side of the business because we believe that was, the blue ocean for us. Like that's the missed piece. And I'm even actually happy to show you how that looks like so you can see. But just circling back, even as I bring that up, Elias, what I did want to do is I also wanted to talk to you about how um, in terms of the other leading indicators, it's just not engagement and usage. It's also knowing what to do with the client in terms of the talking points that you want to leverage, which is let's celebrate the hell out of them, because a lot of us think it's all about accountability. And
Mm.
accountability is a good way of just giving a slap on the wrist. You didn't show up. What's up? I'm holding you accountable. But that's an you're trying to bring a positive twist to a negative behavior, right? And that's word accountability. I'm holding you accountable because I know you're able and to
Mm.
be held accountable, but it's really negative behavior that I'm trying to get away with. But if we can enforce and reinforce more of celebration and celebration the hell out of people, it motivates. That's that M. Like, how do I motivate you to do more of that behavior? So celebrating the form, celebrating the little milestones. And a lot of clients of ours have that frequent sweater board, uh, 10 workouts, 50 milestones like those. Anything and everything that we can find out to celebrate the person makes them engage with you more, because you're like, you got me. I mean, like I
Well,
feel connected here, which goes back to the personalized
we
connection.
tend to look at accountability as a lagging indicator. So we behave in that way, as in you didn't do the thing, so I'm going to hold you accountable, rather than switching it and making accountability a proactive action. Like if you're my accountability buddy for the gym, right? I I'm less likely to have to call you because you didn't show up, right? I'm more likely to reach out and be like, hey, see you tomorrow. Accountability is a proactive, front leading behavior with celebrations, with celebrating milestones, exactly what you're talking about. I love the idea of moving accountability from the back to the front and behaving in that way, because like you said previously, we want to reinforce the behavior that we want to see. And that's a great way of showing loving accountability rather than guilt-driven accountability.
Oh, I love that word. Yes, absolutely. So as you were saying that, I wanted to show you what we've done. Don't judge me by my 1,000 tabs over here. But when we get in, like these are all dummy data, as you can see, test, test, test. But the idea is that's exactly how we've leveraged this. We tell you people who need a lot more love during their first 90 days, right?
Mm.
We tell you how many of those people are. And if you've reached out to them or not, connected with them or not, engaged with them or not, which is that untouched. Like I did not touch them outside the gym. Of course, if they're meeting you, then you're touching them, you're talking to them, you're interacting with them. So the concept of untouched really means that you've not interacted with them. And on this side, we bring in a lot of things like anniversaries, birthdays, uh, and going back to when you connect with people, you get those tidbits of information. When did they open their gym? Like this is for us internally, or they just got a promotion, we put that down, or they bought a new home, put that down. Is buying something, and we put those things in. It acts as a great reminder, and now you can reach out to them,
Yeah.
which is a great way for them to say, you give a damn, you care, because our whole selling proposition against the global gyms is you're a family member here, right? You're not just a number, you're a family member. We know about you, we care about you, and our actions demonstrate that if we know about you personally. And to know about you personally, I get a lot of insights. Like when we interact, like I get to know this is what is important to you. And if I start making those um, mental notes, but then it just stays with me. But if I put it in a system, then my whole team can have access to it.
Yeah.
And then we can all serve the client better and build multiple bonds with the client. That's really essentially what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point that retention is truly about good relationship skills. Like you look at your, like, for example, being married, like my the retention in my house is very, very important. Like I want to stay married, and I want my wife to stay a member of the Scar family, right? Of the Scar clan.
Yeah.
And so you employ these good relationship skills. I can just see the general challenges with, having strong interpersonal relationship skills with 150 people can be daunting unless we start putting systems in place, we start delegating some of that work amongst the team, and making it easy for the team to do that. So with that in mind, if we were to look at retention as, I see that, like, overall we're looking at retention as a rather than a back end behavior, but a front end behavior, managing retention as a proactive, um, with proactive skills. So with that in mind, how can we integrate sort of that onboarding, sales and start and marketing? How do we use onboarding to affect retention down the line? How do we start the right way so that seeds good retention? And what are some of the practical things we can do in the beginning that will help with retention long term?
Yeah, great. So that's a really good thing that you've asked, Elias. Like, I, so onboarding, I learned this from my good friend Doug. He described it the best
Doug
way.
Sperling?
Doug Sperling, yeah. And he describes onboarding as a consistent, choreographed experience
Mm,
for your clients. And the two words that stick out for me, like when he said that, I was like, that just resonated with me because it's choreographed,
yeah, it's
right? It's like
intentional.
it's intentional.
Yeah.
It's very purpose driven. It's like we control the strings and we decide what we want to do with that. And it's consistent because we want to have the same template, if you will, to provide that experience. So it doesn't depend upon Susie, who is a different kind of a coach versus Eli's. No, it is our way of doing things. It's Naamly's way of doing thing kind of thing. So the things to keep in mind over there again comes down to is what are the behaviors that you want to know of and you want to um, like fuel. And then you go back and you have experience that we now know which clients stay longer and pay longer. So what are the characteristics of that? You start with that and say
Mm.
people who show up at least twice a week, right? People who are, that's on the usage attendance side. But what about people who are communicating and connecting with us, people who show up to our events, or people who are referring clients to us, or people who take part in a challenge or in a special program? Like there's so many nuances to that, and you can keep going down this path, but backtrack and say, what's important to us? And you now look at those 3, 5, 6 indicators and say, how do I sprinkle that into you? You can even say, like, people who schedule their own sessions are likely to stay longer with us. Of course, it takes off a lot of work on our side, but we also have clients who are like, no, we provide that as a concierge service. So you got to find what works best for you, look at your population, and then build that onboarding process,
That's something,
giving those examples, giving those insights, and helping them through that journey, if you will. But you're choreographing it.
yeah, well, you brought up something that I hadn't thought about in this way. Like everybody knows that having your ideal client avatar is important, right? But rarely do people talk about why is knowing your ideal avatar, client avatar important? Why is that? Why, like, what? How do we use that information? And the way you described it as looking at who's the ideal person that pays more, stays longer, and participates in the way we want them to participate, but looking at your avatar through the lens of retention, looking at your avatar through the lens of marketing, like specifically going through that list of who are my people, but in what context? In the retention context, how does that avatar behave and how do they make decisions and what implores them to stay? I like that. I think it would be a really good exercise for gym owners to look at who's my favorite member. They're fun to train. They influence everybody around them. They participate. They invest in the company. And then how do I talk to that person on the front end in order to get them to behave that way on the back end? I love that. I think
100%. It's the psychological points too, right? Like you look at it and you decide it. And then even when you're selling, I think we all get caught up in like, let's get that next sale.
mm-hmm.
And we do everything and anything in our um, power to bring them home, except if we looked at it as like, can we really serve this person well? And if that person is likely to succeed
Yeah.
in sometimes we get that vibe, we feel it, we know it, but because we're hungry for more, or because we're hurting somewhere, like let's just live with that. And then we don't realize it. That person's going to come and that person's going to go. And then we're going to blame ourselves. There's a lot more toxicity that comes in. So I think sales is not just about discovering if we're a good fit for that person, but the other way around too, if that
Mm-hmm.
person is a good fit for us.
Yeah.
And I think with maturity and time and a lot of heartaches, you just decide and learn to say no to begin with and say, no, you're not the right fit for us. You don't come in that mold. And I'm not going to serve you because it doesn't serve me long term. I want to make an impact. I want to make a difference, but not at the cost of bringing the overall morale, motivation, the
Right.
culture of my own gym that I've worked hard in building in my business, any business for that matter.
The last thing I want to touch on with you and bringing it all together is I know your I know your management or your leadership style is to actually lead from the bottom, is an upside down pyramid, excuse me, an upside down pyramid where you view your job as supporting the team and the people around you as opposed to leading from the top and everybody's supposed to support you. And I love that. And I think that's integral to fitness because that's what we do as coaches. It's not our job to stand on top of the client, it's to boost the client up, right? To be underneath them, elevating them to the potential that they can really accomplish. And I know you treat your people and your team the same way. So a big part of being successful in that sort of support leadership style, leadership through service, um, a big part of that is making it easy for your team to do their job. So what would you recommend to gym owners to support or coach their team to make doing their part for retention easier? How would you make that easier on the average coach?
Yeah. So just like we have onboarding, you need to have an onboarding process for your coaches, and you need to have checklists and SOPs defined about how do we best serve the client. And
Mhm.
many a times, there are two ways about doing it. Like you said, one could be a top-down approach because I did it all on my own when I started my gym, when I started my business. So I start taking a note of this is how I do it, this is how we do it. And that could be one approach. And then you hire somebody to just execute on your vision, on the way you do it, and make that very clear.
Knowing what to do is a big part about making it easier. Like it's very clear
Yes,
what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, makes sense.
exactly. The other thing way of doing it is, well, you know what? I am not the best person to do it. I'm
Mm.
doing it because I don't have the resources, be it money, be it access to better talent, what have you. So I'm going to do the best I can, but then I'm going to eventually find somebody because I always am looking and then bring that person in and say, look, you tell us what to do and define how to do it, right? I mean, here's a scribble thing or here's a starting point. Feel free to change it, yeah, and decide. But so it's like ultimately it does come down to the process that we want to follow because we need to have one vocabulary, one language, one way of doing things as an organization. But it's the actors, right? So sometimes like you hire people who are smarter, who are more driven than you, and you just say servant leadership. I brought you in. Now you tell me what can I do to support you and set you up for success. The other approach is, well, you're an executioner and I'm not. I don't have that attention to detail. Let me, this is what I want a perfect thing to be. Here are trainer cues. Here are admin checklist items that I want you to do, and so on and so forth. But here's the way we do things, and I just want you to go ahead and do it. So you just got to pick, depending on the role that you're interviewing for and the competency that you already have, what works best for your facility, for your business.
Yeah, that's the I see a lot of gyms that struggle, do everything they can to I don't want to say disempower, but to keep their team from being empowered, right? Because they think if I invest all this time and resources and information in empowering you, what if you leave? And I love the
Yep.
quote where, well, what if you don't empower that person and they stay, which is a
Yep.
significantly worse consequence, right? So I'm absolutely with you on that. The more a team feels empowered to actually have influence and to feel like they can do a good job, because people want to do a good job, right? And they want to
Yep.
help people. It's why they get into that business in the first place. What would be just to send us out on the one final thing? I would love to end this interview with you telling gym owners, go do this thing. This is the first thing you've got to go do in order to improve your retention. So if we're going to narrow it down to get this one thing in place, what is the one thing that a gym owner could go do this week that would improve their retention or start to fix a retention problem?
Oh, one thing. Okay. Well, that one thing will start with first with awareness, right? that, yes, I do have a retention problem, and I don't accept the status quo of, oh yeah, it's okay to lose 6, 7, 8% of my people every month because that's what happens in the industry. That's
Mm.
bullshit. I mean, like,
I love it.
right?
Good
So
enough is not good enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
you got to first acknowledge, and we don't have a lead problem. I really don't think so. Like I just want more leads. My people stay with me forever. Well, that's not true, because if people were staying with you forever, you would continue to grow just through word of mouth, just through referrals, just through
Mhm.
just organic efforts, and you would not ever need to invest in lead acquisition initiatives. But you do. That means people are not staying. So recognizing is the first awareness, but then the action part, which is the thing then you do, is you got to just put your filters on, which suggests, let me put myself in their shoes.
Mm.
How do I, to the best of my ability, put myself in their shoes and see what they see? Like when I hang out with trainers and we go to mastermind events, we rent big homes and we sit in. I see my trainer friends. The first thing when they come in is like, where are we going to work out? Where are we going to go in the morning to? Where's the next gym? Well, that's not what your ideal of avatar is thinking. They're
Yeah.
not going somewhere and saying, where am I going to work out? They don't want to work out. Like it's the least thing that they're thinking about. So you got to change that mindset. Like, okay, how do I make it easy for somebody who's not even thinking about working out when they're going out? What can I do? So you got to put that lens on, is um, put myself in their shoes and then look at things. And it's such a tough exercise to do. So that's when you can lean on really close friends who don't come from the fitness space and say, come on in, go through my gym and
Mhm.
tell me what you see, which my gym eyes don't see. I don't see the cobwebs. I don't see the equipment lying out there. I don't see the chaos that is there because I just learned to live with it. But if you get a fresh pair of eyes that you can trust somebody, a friend, uh, your parents, your sibling, it doesn't matter, but someone who is not doing what you're doing, that always helps. And then say, okay, now I know, or at least that's a start. And then I know you said one thing, so that's a start. I would say
But it is. I think overall, if we look at it, what you're encouraging everybody to do is to be brave, put the right lenses on, and dig into your data. Get into your numbers to know, to realize, do we have an issue that needs to be fixed? Where is this issue coming from, and how do my clients see that? And it can be scary to dig into your numbers. It can be scary to look into, to go hunting for the core of the issue, but really having that bravery to step into your client's mind, to step into your client's shoes, to look at your data, look at your numbers, and take the emotion out of it. It's just data. And then with good data, we can take good action. I think that's great.
very well said. Yeah.
The biggest lesson here is that retention doesn't have to be difficult. It just has to be specific. Click the link below for our guide of 9 secret ways to improve retention. Or if you're just ready to make retention easy, book a demo with Naamly. The link's down there as well. Please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to smash that bell for alerts.